It gives me great pleasure to introduce, although I don't think they need introduction, Klaus Biesenbach, director of MoMA PS1 and curator at large of MoMA, and Ulrich Obrist, co-director of the Serpentine.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow travelers, thank you so much, John, for the introduction and really for everything. It's such an immense pleasure and also privilege for us to show this exhibition here in Sydney in perfect circumstances. It's really a quantum leap. And Klaus and I are going to, at the beginning, talk a little bit about how we got there, about different projects which are preceding this exhibition, and then in the later part we're going to do one of our ping-pongs, telling you more about the 13 rooms. We're very, very grateful to John and of course to everybody else, mainly also to Naomi and to the more than 120 protagonists who all participated in this exhibition, and of course, foremost and above all, to the 13 artists. Without them, there would be no exhibition, and it's all thanks to them. We'd like to thank particularly Clark Beaumont and Xavier Leroy, who are with us here tonight at the opening, as well as also Laura Lima, who is on her way here and should arrive any minute. Klaus and I thought that we might show just very few examples of what precedes 13 rooms, and which is also something to do with maybe ingredients, which are in the exhibition, which then come together. And if I could have the remote thing, thank you, Klaus. The beginning really, for me to work with instructions, was a project called Do It. So if you could have the Do It project, a project called Do It, which Christian Boltanski, Bertrand Lavier and I started in 1993. It's the 20th anniversary this year, so we did a book with ICI, and the idea was really to ask artists to write written instructions which could then be realized or not realized. So this doesn't seem to work. We have lots of different instructions. There can be, of course, recipes, like here with Marina Abramovic, or poetic instructions, like with Etel Adnan, or more activist instructions, like in the case of Ai Weiwei. What all these works have in common is that they are about intersubjective experience. It is not about objects. It is about this idea that actually they trigger situations and can be realized all over the world. It's a bit like a musical score, which is interpreted and can be interpreted again and again. And that includes, of course, moments of conceptual practice, but a lot of younger artists also who work on that. One of the things which is important is that it also has to do, of course, with time, how to curate time, and it has to do how art can actually, or how an exhibition can travel, in a different way than an object. So this exhibition has been around now for 20 years. It's happened twice in Australia. It's happened in Melbourne and also in Perth, when Sophie O'Brien did it there for the festival. And so far there are more than 250 instructions. Of course, they are in the digital age now, also more and more digital instructions. There is a museum version. There is also a television version. There is a version for home use, which you can find on the site of eFlux. And obviously these works are not necessarily temporary, because they can actually be realized again and again. Particularly the museum version, as you can see it here. In the book here is John Baldessari, about situation how to cope with bugs. So basically, instruction art. And instruction art plays a big role in art history throughout the 20th century. Marcel Duchamp gave instructions to his sister when he did his ready-made Malheureux from Argentina. He gave instructions to his sister to do something on the balcony in France, far away. Moholy-Nagy, in the 30s, was the first artist to actually realize an artwork over the telephone. A wonderful instruction recently written by Robert Barry, the conceptual artist, especially for our Do It book. And so throughout the 20th century, you have instruction art. During Fluxus, it became an open score. Cannot really misinterpret that. Any realization is a good realization for Fluxus artists. That has a lot to do with John Cage, the inspiration of his open score. And then obviously you have also instructions which have to do with, performative instructions. Like here, Jérôme Bell, there's a lot of choreography instructions involved in Do It. And the question is, are the artists involved in actually realizing this instruction, or can anyone just do it? And that leads us then to 13 rooms. We're going to discuss this later, because with 13 rooms, it's not only the score, like here, but with 13 rooms, we add also the score of the score, which means the artists are very involved in telling and orchestrating the situation of how their instruction is realized. And that's what the composer Pierre Boulez once said, when he said that it is not only the musical score, but it's the whole knowledge of the composer, and in this instance the whole knowledge of the artist, which enters how one actually would interpret an instruction in many different ways. So that's for me the beginning of working with time-based art, was Do It, now in its 20th year. And obviously there has always been this idea to do this in a different way and maybe do bigger exhibitions which are time-based. And really the beginning of that, because it was never really possible for us to do that in museums, because whenever we want to do it in museums, as larger group shows, the idea was museums sort of felt it should rather happen in an opera house or in a theater, and we went to theaters and opera houses said, it's more an art project, it should happen in the museum. They kind of fell between the stools. That leads us to Manchester. In 2006, Alex Poots became the director of the Manchester International Festival. It's an interesting story because it's actually something every city should do. The mayor was very smart in Manchester. He asked the famous artist Peter Saville, the great son of Manchester, to actually give him advice how Manchester could reinvent itself. And Peter Saville said the best thing would be to do a festival where everything is new. A festival where things can happen which can happen nowhere else in the world. Peter Saville advised the mayor of Manchester to hire the wonderful festival director Alex Poots and really come up with this festival which for our generation was always missing. A festival where basically these world premieres could bring the performing arts, the music world and art together. And that's really the sort of commissioning base on which everything else afterwards, which we're going to talk about tonight in relation to 13 rooms, was actually based on, because it is Manchester which commissioned 13 rooms, commissioned Klaus and me to do 13 rooms. But before that, in 2007, we did an opera, and I'm going to show you a small extract of that opera now, which is an artist opera. We felt it could be important to actually give artists time and not space. So in Manchester, a whole evening filling program. Here you see the prelude of Liam Gillick, a piano, with snow that was always activated, and then 12 artists actually did 15 minutes acts between music and mise en scène and opera. And here is the inaugural act of the artist Philippe Pareno, with whom I co-curated the show.
Yeah, it makes you want to be a ventriloquist. John introducing us reminded me actually what the role of a curator is, because in an interesting way Hans-Ulrich and I are at the end of a marathon. What is a curator? A curator is a person who observes, hopefully is curious and observes and finds a conclusion and then shows, exhibits or translates what he or she observed. So in an interesting way, what John was introducing us basically is what our job is. So this week we had an explanation to the performers. There are 120 young artists downstairs. They're dancers, performers, come from every different disciplines, and so it was really interesting to try to explain to them what the concept of 13 rooms is. You have the performers, but you also have the gallery attendants, and that might be an overlap, so I'm not saying too much, but have an experience yourself. And perhaps there's not even so much of a difference between who's performing and who's not performing. And then of course you also have the wonderful sponsor, the bank, who is coming and bringing the clients, and then you're explaining what you're trying to do with 13 rooms. So you have the artists themselves, and then John said, oh, tonight is your colleagues, so he wanted to make us a bit nervous, so we should do that slightly different. And Hans-Ulrich and I thought, how do we do that differently? And perhaps it is interesting to share that when, as John said, you do many projects, that these projects are not arbitrary like 100 and you do one every week, because I think between Hans-Ulrich and I, we have literally worked with every single artist downstairs in the exhibition, at least for one retrospective survey project commission. So between Damien Hirst and Marina Abramovic, between Joan Jonas, who for me, for example, was the first artist I've ever done an exhibition with in 1991. There's a lot of years and a lot of experience and a lot of exchange and a lot of dialogue. So I think that is one plot. What Hans-Ulrich was saying about Do It is that Hans-Ulrich has a tradition, a history himself, working with artists and asking them, what is an instruction piece? How can you, dear artist, you, dear Yoko Ono, dear Baldassare, make a piece that enables the viewer not to only be a viewer, but to be a participant and do art him or herself. So I think Do It is really perhaps one of the first exhibitions that on a broader scale made the viewer a participant, and that's something that you hopefully will experience. I hope you will be embarrassed and you will be a little bit disturbed and you will be curious and you feel that might be too much or not enough. So I think 13 Rooms definitely is an exhibition that plays with the role of the viewer and the performer and leaves it rather unclear who actually is performing and who's not. Talking about traditions, we prepared a couple of images, if this works. Try this. Yeah, I'm trying to go one back. This is actually two different histories. This is two different artists and two artists we both worked with a lot. On the right-hand side, perhaps an artist you might not know, Te-Ching Hsieh. He's an artist who jumped off a boat from Taiwan in 1949. He's born on the 31st of December. I think it's very, very interesting because if you're born on the 31st of December, it's a calendar year, it's your own year. He jumped off illegally as an immigrant. The Boston Harbor, lived for years in America without a visa, without a passport. And this hiding, and this kind of, he's a studied painter actually from Taipei, inspired him to do pieces that were 1 year long. So some people call him the 1 year artist. He was 1 year only outdoors. He was 1 year tied together with the artist Linda Montana, and they were tied together 6 feet of rope, and they could never split, but they were also not allowed to touch each other. He did one piece where he put a piece of paper into a time slot in a clock, like you have in a factory. So you put your time slot every hour. He got photographed every hour. So when you see every day 24 pictures being sped up, speeding up those images, make a short movie of 6 minutes, 24 images a day, 365 days. So you see his hair grow. But just imagine doing this every hour. And I think the most amazing piece he did, he spent 1 year without working, without talking, without reading, without consuming, without doing anything in a room. There was no daylight, there was no clock. Didn't talk to anybody, so you didn't know, did an hour pass or did a day pass, did a week pass? Am I on months 9 or 12, or did I just spend a week being incredibly bored? So he is a hero for us, and here he is sitting next to Marina Abramovic, who is one of the patron saints of this exhibition. And you see them here in The Artist is Present, an exhibition done at MoMA, but before this exhibition, for 2 years, we did a performance workshop. So we asked artists as different as Paul Chen, Matthew Barney, or Santiago Serra. We asked curators from all different museums, from festivals, from art centers, to really say, how do you make performance an experience? Is there something like a score? It's like you write an opera, and of course the opera can be performed. Is it like a dance? You're Pina Bausch and you made these amazing, beautiful evenings of of dance, and is that forever gone when the artist dies? So what does a museum do? What does a museum have to do? What's the responsibility of a museum to exhibit, collect and preserve performances? So in a strange way, in a hopefully great way, 13 Rooms is a temporary museum of time-based arts. It's a temporary museum of performance. So just with the example of Marina, I give you a couple of pictures. Here she's set for 100 days, 3 months in the atrium of MoMA. And you could never see her walk in, you could never see her walk out. She literally declared herself a sculpture. So whenever the museum was open, she was there. It was meant that she was seated in front of an empty chair. It wasn't empty, it was a surprise, but there was actually a line. People were waiting up to 12 hours in the end to sit across from her. But it's not. So you see here a couple of other pictures. Imponderabilia, a piece she did 1977 with Ulai, and I'll show you the second picture. I think one mistake we did in the exhibition, but that is, contemporary exhibitions always a hit and miss. You do an experiment, what is the definition of an experiment? It can succeed, but it can also fail. We thought we would be super smart and be super metrosexual, and not like Marina and Ulai in the 70s, being a girl and a boy, because every couple at the time was a girl and a boy. We thought we were in New York and it would be girls and guys, and here you see 2 girls as a couple, as a human entrance, and that was reenacted from the groundbreaking piece that Marina and Ulai did in 1977. Marina and Ulai did this for a very brief moment only, because the police came. And of course you don't have a passport, so you can't identify yourself, and they were taken away. And we redid this piece, of course with the permission, under the instruction of the artist, and that's an important component for the exhibition downstairs. Point of Contact, another important piece from Ulai and Abramovich, where they try to keep their fingers in perfect balance for an undetermined duration. And here you see relation in time, where the hair was strung together. They did this in real time, 16 hours as one marathon, and then took pictures every hour. But this was very different, because this was literally every day like a sculpture. And I'm going a bit forward. Here you see how you actually do this. Looks a little bit like a clinic. Here's a piece that Marina won the Golden Lion in Venice for, where her father and her mother are actually participating. And here a piece, Nude with Skeleton, that is related to this, where we had on a shelf-like structure in the museum, a person, could be a boy, could be a girl, basically lie underneath a skeleton for the duration of the exhibition, which was an interesting, very, very intriguing question. What actually makes a sculpture a sculpture? And when we had our talks with many of the artists, we talked to Mike Kelly, who unfortunately is not with us anymore. But Mike Kelly explained to us, gave us a story when, like, just imagine in ancient times, huntsmen were just after, like, whatever, a lion or a tiger. And one of their group would fall down a cliff and they would find him and he wouldn't be alive anymore. So it was not their friend anymore, but was that a sculpture? Was that a dead body? What is that actually? What sculpture is? And so that leads to combining experiments like with Marina, combining instructional pieces like Hans Ulrich was pointing towards in Do It. So what you have downstairs is 13 galleries. In each gallery you have a sculpture. The sculpture is always a human being or more persons. And by definition, the sculpture, the human beings, should not be the artist. Rules are there to be broken, so Clark Beaumont, they are there, the artists are present. And one definition that came by coincidence with all rooms have doors, to really make it a bit even more an experience to enter the sphere, the private sphere, to go over a threshold. Only to have Alora Calzadia yesterday call us, and they were basically saying, we don't want the doors. We were a bit hesitant, but then we took the doors away. So this was a short pong, another ping for Hans Ulrich. And I guess we have to, because the the artists are starting to perform downstairs, so we have to at some point appreciate them in person.
Yeah, ping and pong, indeed we will be very short, a few more minutes, and then invite you all to see the show downstairs. I mean, as Klaus said, there are these rules of the game. The experience is that you have these 13 rooms. In Manchester it was 11, in Essen it was 12. What changed here is that in Manchester and Essen it was part of a festival. It grew out of this idea of time-based art in a festival, and here for the first time the exhibition stands really on its own. We are incredibly thankful to Benjamin Seidler and Seidler Architects for really doing this amazing architecture here, black and white, boxes, rooms, and the viewer can really go from room to room. It's almost the ideal presentation for us of this show, and basically, you can knock at the doors or not knock at the doors, and then look in every room what is there. And there are many surprises. In some rooms there is a conversation. In some rooms it's really very quiet. In other rooms, somehow surprises can happen. And Xavier Leroy, who is actually the only participant in the show who doesn't come from the contemporary art kind of museum exhibition world, but who comes from the world of choreography and dance. He's one of the great choreographers of our time. And Klaus and I have actually tried to convince him for a long time to bring him in the world of the museum. We invited him in '98 for our first Biennale. We must maybe also say that our collaboration with Klaus has been going on for a long time. We met on a night train by coincidence in the early 90s, and that led to the first Berlin Biennale. And after that collaboration with Xavier, he really doubted about the museum, and we invited him then to Laboratorium in '99. And in '99 in Laboratorium, he said he really doesn't want to have another museum experience, and we had his piece outside the museum and installed his own laboratory, for choreography, where he could actually experiment, and it was not in the museum. So this is now his return to the context of an exhibition. He did an amazing museum show last year in Barcelona, and it's also fascinating that he, as a choreographer, has actually been the great mentor to one of the wonderful artists of our time, to Tino Segal, and their kind of dialogue is something very important, I would say, in relation to this show. Now, Xavier said yesterday that he observed a wonderful reaction of one of the first visitors to the show. He basically observed the visitor in his space and heard the person say all of a sudden, "Now I see the sound." And almost as if the person had been astonished by what she said, she then said, "Did I say that?" And in some kind of way, many such surprising reactions will happen, because these are intersubjective experiences. These are experiences one can make which have to do with an Aufführung. It's a kind of a staging. Each of these situations is a staging. It's a meeting point, where really, as Klaus said, it's participatory, and the works actually materialize once the viewer arrives, but they're also mostly there when the viewer isn't there. However, and that's very important, that in the evening, because it really is a sculpture show, so it's there from 10 in the morning to 7 p.m. But then at 7 p.m., as we always say, the sculptures go home. So that means that actually, at the end of the day, the sculptures again dematerialize. So in this sense, it is different from a bronze sculpture, because the bronze sculpture obviously doesn't dematerialize at the end of the day, but it is at the same time not a performance, because a performance would be temporary, it would be ephemeral, it would have a specific time frame, and these works are not temporary, they are not impermanent, which means they can actually become part not only of an exhibition, they can even become part of the collection. So for example, the work which you see in the exhibition of Tino Segal is part of John Kaldor's collection, which means that he in the future, whenever he wants to show it again, he can show it again in an exhibition. So it corresponds to this criteria, of an artwork, which is not ephemeral, but which can develop the same kind of permanence. That's just as another, explanation why it is not performance, but sculpture. Ping and pong.
Yeah, making a short point. Just want to talk a bit about what we cannot explain, or which is a different observation. I remember I went to a workshop in my early 20s, and there were kind of whatever, students from all different disciplines, and I met a young opera singer. And so we were like walking around, and so I have this workshop. It was in the Bavarian Alps near Munich, and so she said, "Oh, shall we have a walk?" I said, "Okay, we have a walk." And we walked along the river, and we talked about what this horrible workshop was like. And I totally forgot to ask, what are you actually doing? And she said, "I'm an opera singer." And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, totally not interesting. I don't like opera, so. And at the time. And then we were just walking along, and she started singing. And I don't know if you have a friend who's an opera singer, just do that as an exercise. So you're walking along a river, and she started singing opera. And it's a completely alienating, strange, wonderful experience, because it's like all of a sudden there's an instrument. It's not her voice, it's a completely different voice. And she has that gift, and she has that talent, or she has that skills, trained. But I felt it was an incredible moment of whoa. So it's not that I like opera afterwards so much more, but I felt that it was that point where it's not what you describe it is. Marina did a workshop last year. We have summer school in New York, and so she's trying to establish this institute for durational performance, and people could just sign up, and I think it was first come, first serve. You had to prove you had like an intact whatever health, that you wouldn't like die when you do something 6 hours long. And so there was this workshop. Marina said, "I want everybody to cross this room very slowly." And one of the students, we had no idea who that person was, crossed this room, and everybody said, "Whoa, what's going on?" Turns out it was David Holberg, who is a solo dancer here from the ballet, who had just applied and went onto this. But it's muscle memory, so he floated across. And so between the opera singer, whose body is an instrument, and between David, who now we all kind of like, the whole school later found out who he was, there's an incredible talent. And when you look at this work, Luminosity, that's a piece that we premiered in Berlin in the late 90s. Marina was floating in front of the wall for 9 straight hours. So that's something that she is trying to teach, and that she is trying, and it's somewhere between muscle memory of a dancer, and it's somewhere between an acquired skill like an opera voice. But she literally could do this for 9 hours. When we had the first training for the MoMA retrospective, we had at one day the re-performers on this with a helmet and a safety belt, because they literally could not stay up on that bicycle seat. And at some point we realized, unless you are training this for 40 years and you are skilled in front of an audience to be completely exposed, naked, that your blood pressure, nothing works, and you can do it for 20 minutes. So when you really train it, you can do it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but somebody like Marina did it for 9 hours. And there's something just for you to have a different understanding for the re-performers, because it's kind of a Matryoshka doll, this exhibition, because they see concept, there is kind of like a different instruction. Then there are 9 amazing careers of artists like Santiago Sierra, like Alora Calzadia. But then there is always the situation, which I think is very beautiful, because it's the opposite of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You are just there in front of this person, and who is, it's a one-to-one experience. It's like standing in front of a Van Gogh painting without any mediation.
And that's kind of interesting, because I had a phone call on January the 1st, 2000, with my friend Matthew Barnley, and he basically, we wished each other a happy new millennium and had a longer chat. And something incredible happened, because Matthew suddenly said, for the new millennium, he wishes, more life experience. I thought, wow, more life experience. And that's the artist who, throughout the 90s, had worked so much with time, but mostly with moving image, with this very long duration kind of grey master films. And this same artist, all of a sudden, had a desire for life experience. And that obviously has to do with what Klaus just said, in some kind of way, in our digital age, there is a desire for life experience. As we have also in music, a desire for, live concerts. Live concerts are bigger than ever. And so there is also this desire in art, for life experience. And I think that very much has to do with the fact why we've observed throughout the last 10, 15 years, more and more artists working with such life situations. And one thing which is important is, because we mentioned rule of the game, it would be utterly wrong if a curator comes up with a rule of the game and then art follows. It's always the other way around. Curating always follows art. It's a horror that art would follow, or artists would follow curating. Curating follows art, and curating follows mainly also artists. And we follow artists, and we've been having these conversations with artists, and saw that a whole generation of artists emerging around 2000, if it's Dino, whom we mentioned, or if it's also Roman Ondak, or Alora Calzadilla, more recently also Simon Fujiwara. They've all been working with such life situations, with such living sculptures. To quote Gilbert and George, whom John Kaldor brought here very early on in his incredible pioneering activity to get all these artists to Australia, at the very beginning of their trajectory. So if you think about these living sculptures in a younger generation of artists, Klaus and I picked that up. And then we thought, let's make it a historical exhibition. And as Klaus mentioned, we looked at the 90s and we discovered this piece of Damien Hirst. We looked back at the 80s, at the 70s. Another artist whom John Kaldor got here to Australia very early on is John Baldessari. And he's here with a piece from the 1970s. He made a new version specially for the exhibition here. Joan Jonas, another pioneer who very early on worked with such endeavors. And then we looked also outside the Western world. We felt it's important that we look China, the Middle East, all over the world. In China we found the work of Xu Zhen, another artist who emerged around 2000 with his sort of frozen living sculptures. And then we looked at Latin America and discovered the work of Laura Lima, who also has been working in the last 15 years a lot with living sculptures. And we are running out of time.
And Laura arrived.
Wow, welcome to Laura Lima. A very warm welcome.
Should we get a chair?
Are you joining us?
Yeah, one second. Great. It's not as magical as we hoped the chair would come out. Yeah, big thank you to Laura, because we guessed Laura was in Brazil, where I last saw you.
That's true.
And then the day before yesterday we found out you're in Melbourne.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
You just arrived and you're leaving in 60 minutes, go back to Melbourne.
Yeah, in 2 hours.
Oh, great.
I'll stay.
Because it's got an opening,
Yeah, actually tomorrow is the opening. So I got some time to come. Things were very calm there, so I could come, and I was really curious to see everything. So that's it, but I just arrived, so I don't know exactly what was the subject.
But maybe you can tell us about your piece, because how you came up with the idea for this piece, which we show in 13 rooms, and which was already in the previous incarnations, in Essen and in Manchester.
Yeah, well, let's see. I am. This actually was a note that I took some years ago, like almost more than 5 years. I can't remember now. And then I didn't have the opportunity to do this piece, and I was doing an exhibition in Rio de Janeiro, in a building with this neoclassic style, and it was very vertical. And then I think this was the first thing that came in my mind when I just looked for in my books, in my notebooks, and then I saw this note of a ceiling that could just come very close to the floor, like very, constructing a kind of flat space. It was just kind of a compression of the space and someone that could be there. And actually it was a kind of affected thing in the beginning, because I used to talk a lot with a guy that that used to work in the corner of my house. That was a very special guy with a special history in his body. And then I think this was very, you know, when I did this note for the first time, you know, this kind of oppression of the architecture that could just sometimes create ways for you to behave inside of architectures. So I think I mixed these two things, and then in this exhibition, in this vertical, very aiming a kind of perfection, this architecture, I really want to collapse somehow, you know, this architecture. So this was the first idea in this exhibition that I think Klaus saw in Rio, no?
Yeah, it was a very strange day because I was in Rio, I think 2 days, and I think it's not really allowed to go to a city like Rio or Sydney and not understand how beautiful they are. So you have to at least stop over at a beach or whatever, and it's for 5 minutes. And so on the way to the airport, Ernesto Neto, the artist, our friend, said, you have to see Laura Lima's exhibition. And I couldn't find the museum, and it's a bank institution, and it's not such a spectacularly rich part of the city. No. And there was a person lying, a homeless person, under a blanket in the entrance. So there was just this old blanket, and you understood because the blanket was a little bit moving that there was a person underneath. And then I went into the exhibition, and there were all these beautiful people in a hammock. And there was a girl and a boy in a hammock, and they had very long eyelashes and hair, and so it was like really Rio and like swing and hammock. And then I'm totally claustrophobic, and then everybody said you have to bend down. And so having had the memory of a person under a blanket in front of the door, seeing the person under the ceiling, it was all of a sudden, I felt it was me under there in a way. It was really very visceral. And I remember I called Ernesto, and then I called you, and then I called Hans Ulrich, and somehow we got together in that moment of time of shock in a way. And I think it's a very, very strong piece. So yesterday I saw people walk by, and because everybody had a suit on, and then I made a statement like kneeling on the floor, because you really, really have to go on your knees and see it.
Yeah, we have somehow to understand it's also a piece that asks you to change a little bit the behavior of, you know, just to see art like, you know, in a very vertical as well, because the comparison of architecture and the body at the same time. I have just to go under the place and see, just lay down the floor to see the piece.
Maybe we should go and see it, no? I mean, one thing before we all go downstairs and see the exhibition, which we also would like to mention, is that we felt it's very important that each time the exhibition happens, we add a local artist who then becomes part of, you know, the global tour. So we started, you know, Australian research, and thanks to Simon Castells and the research we're doing with him, 89 Plus, which is a sort of research into the generation of artists who grew up with the internet, the first digital native generation artists who are born in 89 and younger. We found Clark Beaumont, and that's the, you know, link to Australia. It's their first kind of international show, where they are actually showing their kind of idea of living sculpture. We feel it's important to have many, many links to the local context with such exhibition. I mean, John and also Klaus and I mentioned that there is more than 120 local performance artists, you know, who participate in the show. Local choreographers are involved in working with the artists, you know, on the choreography. And we must also mention the catalogue. For the first time, this exhibition got a catalogue here, because before it didn't have a catalogue. It was in festivals, and festivals kind of, theatre festivals and performance festivals usually don't do books, and we in the art world are obsessed by books. We love books, and that's also important during the age of the internet, that, you know, books are more important than ever. So we're incredibly grateful to the team here for this extraordinary, to Sophie and the entire team for this extraordinary publication. We have actually 2 Australian writers who are also here tonight, Nikos Papastegaris and also David Malouf, who both give, you know, very different sort of visions on what they think 13 Rooms is about. And David Malouf talks about this idea also of a house. Obviously, he's written this amazing book, called the Edmontonian Street, and that's all about a house in Brisbane, and we can think that maybe the 13 rooms is also a growing house, because each time the exhibition happens, we add another room. So Klaus said today, instead of 13 room, 37 room, and I thought it was very beautiful because it brings it into 2037, so it's all science fiction, has only just begun. Ping and pong, maybe Klaus, a last pong, a last ping?
A very short pong. So, over the last couple of years, I think between you and I, we have more than 50 possible rooms because we talk to so many artists, and just imagine from cut piece from 1964 from Yoko Ono to studio visits we do. So you could do a 37 or 57 rooms exhibition. What we have, sometimes when we have described it to museums or to artists, we basically use 3 anecdotes or 3 metaphors. Just imagine you are working in a big company, some of you do, some of you work in a big museum or whatever, and just imagine a colleague of yours comes and say, come to my office, but close the door behind you. And there's always this, oops, what's going to happen? Just imagine you are on a very high floor in a skyrise, in a high-rise, just like you're on the 37th floor. You enter the elevator, and you know, it's like you can count 3 seconds a floor, so it's 90 seconds. So you have 90 seconds to go down to the ground floor. On the 36th floor, 1 floor into your journey, the doors open and somebody comes in who's completely butt naked. So what do? Do you immediately leave, or do you pretend to be on the BlackBerry, or turn around, or it's a little bit like that situation in the office. It's a little bit like a person entering the elevators that you really don't know what to do with. And another, I think, metaphor that describes the 37 rooms really well. It's a bit different from your room, because your room is, you don't enter. Actually, it would be really interesting to enter your room. Yeah, I should try that once.
A little bit.
There's this one other anecdote that we use. Just imagine you have these amazing theater tickets, and it's 1 performance only, and then the company is gone, and you really have to go there. You're late, you're stuck in traffic. You run. And the usher says, go all the way straight and then make a right. So you run all the way straight and you make a right and you open the door, but you're not on your seat, you're not in front of your seat, you're on the stage. So that's a bit where we hope...
and I think that's a great time to stop.
Such a good conductor, like, whoops.
So, Laura, welcome and thank you. You're only here for 2 hours for the opening. She has to go back to Melbourne, so thank you for making the effort. Klaus and Hans-Ulrich, thank you so much. Now please, come and look at our house, look at the rooms, because the performers, the sculptors are going to go home sharp at 8. So I want you to see as much as possible.